President-elect Trump.
It's time for us to come together as one united people.
In-depth coverage on KSL News Radio.
11:06 here at KSL News Radio. Congressman Jason Chaffetz joins us. His wife Julie is also here with us. We appreciate you being here. And, you know, every time we invite the congressman to join us, especially when we find out he's going to be here in studio, I always say, no, don't forget the donuts. You're the only guy that doesn't forget the donuts.
I did bring the donuts. They had a sale on the Halloween donuts, so I got a good deal at Daylight Donuts, and they're kind of orange, but they're good.
Hey,
I'm halfway through mine.
Sale donuts, I take them anytime. Jason, it's so good to see you. Our 3rd District Congressman, of course, joining us, and good to see you. Joining us, and I'm not sure where that came from. There we go. Got a little reverb in my head. And that's normal, by the way. Let's talk a little bit and a little debrief on the election process. Holy cow. How is this affecting Washington? What are the vibes right now back in Washington?
Well, it's a sea change, and I think that's exactly what the American people said they wanted. They don't want more of the same. I think they were frustrated with the direction of Washington, D.C. They didn't feel like they were responding. What you'll find, though, is almost every single House and Senate member was reelected. Republicans maintain control in the Senate and in the House. I think they're recognizing that the executive branch is run amok, that they were doing things through regulation. They were doing things through executive orders that they didn't want. And they wanted somebody who was going to tell them the truth, and it was going to make America great again. And in contrast with Hillary Clinton, it was a very winning message that none of the pollsters and most of the media elites did not understand and probably still aren't understanding.
I heard some people who were even stalwart supporters of Trump from the very beginning who said Donald Trump was hearing a voice that even I didn't hear out there. And somebody said it rather interestingly to us. It was actually Don Pay, who said, you know, it's amazing if you listen to the cabbies, if you listen to people that are behind the counters, if you listen to people like that, it's amazing what they will tell you because they are hearing it all. They are literally where the rubber meets the road. They're literally at street level. They're on the other side of the counter. And sometimes we spend gazillions of dollars on focus groups and polls and everything else, when the average common folks, if you'll just stop and talk to them, will tell you a lot. Well,
and Donald Trump, I mean, like he's a billionaire who lives in a very opulent place right in downtown, New York City. But he had probably the best ear to the ground and understood the common person and the struggles that they're facing. And ultimately, I think races come down to who do they know, who do they like, and who do they believe will implement the policies that will actually affect their lives. And I think Donald Trump, despite all of some of the problems and challenges, things that I had a hard time with I think he, at the end of the day, when you're faced with two choices, there was a real distrust of Hillary Clinton. And I want to be gracious. She has been gracious in her defeat. But at the same time, I think people recognize that she could not tell the truth, that she was running an unethical ship. And it scared a lot of independents and a lot of people to the point where they said, let's try a new direction. Let's try Donald Trump.
One of the most telling things in this election was that more Democrats defected to Donald Trump than did Democrats defecting or Republicans defecting to Hillary Clinton. I have to tell you, that surprised me. And you mentioned something a moment ago. I know you had tons of heartburn. I had tons of heartburn. Almost everybody I know had, even when they were supporting Donald Trump, had heartburn over some of the rhetoric. How do we get past that, Jason? How do we move on? Because, you know, those immortal words do matter. We had one of our callers earlier. We were saying, okay, what do you want President-elect Trump to do first? And he said he's going to do a lot of things first, and a lot of things are going to be fast, and a lot of things are going to be beautiful. So what do we believe in some of the things that he said he would do? This person said, I don't really care what he does first. I'm concerned about what he said he was going to do.
Yeah. Well, I think probably the three people who can set the tone more than anybody are on the right path. I think President Obama, what he said, what Hillary Clinton said, and what Donald Trump has said in the first 24 hours or so is the right tone and tenor that people want to see. But then you get to the nitty-gritty when you start to get into January, because we have to start implementing some policy. And there are going to be changes with Obamacare. There are going to be changes in tax reform. There are going to be there is going to be an implementation of policy changes that a lot of people are going to struggle with, but the majority have been cheering and wanting to happen. And so that's what's exciting for me, is to get after the policy side of it. And the sideshow of the rhetoric and the calling people names, I mean, it's embarrassing so much. And it's, when you have young kids and you want to be able to let them watch the television and listen to their leaders, and when they're down in the mud, but, hopefully we can get past that. And you know what? I am proud of the fact that I withdrew my endorsement of Donald Trump, because heaven forbid that we should never tolerate or accept somebody who's going to offer and suggest such demeaning approach towards anybody. And we got to call it out when Republicans do it. Republicans should call it out. But Democrats should call it out when Democrats do it.
That's true.
So I'm glad I voted for Donald Trump. I think it was the right vote in that context. But at the same time, we do have to move the country forward, and there better be some changes. That's what we were elected to do.
It was our friend Boyd Matheson over at Sutherland Institute who said this about one of his colleagues, female, who came up to him literally in tears, not necessarily about the election of Donald Trump, but just the tone and tenor of this election. And she literally through tears said, "This cannot become the norm."
Yeah.
We're better than this.
Yeah. And I think what a lot of the analysts missed on national television is, and on the radio and in the print, is that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and even Barack Obama and some of his rhetoric, it's not as if they had a clean slate. I really kind of got into it with Wolf Blitzer once on CNN, and he was, complaining about Donald Trump. And I said, well, you act as if Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton didn't. Also, that they had a clean slate, that they had some moral high ground here. But we need to get back more to what I saw Mitt Romney do in elevating the discussion and sticking to policy. And the worst thing they found about him was, he had a dog on the top of his car, which I still think isn't not
it amazing
that bad.
There was an article very early on in the summer, we've talked about it a lot here on this show, that said the 12 things guaranteed to absolutely torpedo your campaign, ... unless you're Donald Trump. And it was amazing this time. And I think there is a flip side to that, too. The whatever number of things that were guaranteed to torpedo your campaign unless you are ... Hillary Clinton. I've never seen anything like it. And I look at the things that Mitt, let's just go back to the most recent election, that he was criticized for. That comment on 47, the self-deportation, it just seems like Sunday school stuff compared to what we have endured this election.
But remember, the Democrats demonized Mitt Romney as being this uncaring person, as this elitist who looked down on the downtrodden. And it was so fundamentally opposite of the Romneys that I know. But let's not anybody kid themselves. There was a Democratic machine out there that wanted to destroy the man and characterized him. And I know that what his family went through on trying to demonize them and their kids was one of the most atrocious things ever. But it was met with, oh, well, that's just campaigning. We can't tolerate that. We should not put up with it just because it's campaigning or politics. Look at any Facebook page of any politician, and you're going to see some of the most vile language and approach. And it's embarrassing. It's amazing that society will actually put up with that.
We'll have to compare hate mail sometime and nasty tweets and texts that come in. Jason, you mentioned Congress. We're talking to our 3rd District Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Congress plays such a critical role, and honestly, even one member of our federal delegation back there, Mike Lee, wrote a piece for the National Review that said, our skirts aren't clean either. We have allowed some of the judicial overreach, and we have allowed some of the executive overreach because basically we're not doing our jobs. We're not getting the work done the way we should. Is there truth in that?
There is. One of the frustrations for me is the remedy, if there is a true conflict between the legislative and executive branch, is the judicial branch. But that takes years. Some of the listeners may recall Fast and Furious. This was a gun running program in the Obama administration, right in the first year. Well, we have been in a tussle with them, and we're still in the courts trying to get the documents from Fast and Furious out of the Obama administration. So the relief through the judicial branch is also part of what we need to do. But I can tell you that I have spent a better part of my time in Washington, D.C. trying to be the check and the balance on the executive branch. But it seems like on a daily basis, we see the executive branch overreaching their authority and doing things that they're just not allowed to do. And unless they're shamed in the media, they don't seem to pull it back. And I think it is one of the most pertinent questions. Is the Congress going to be relevant?
Chris Christie said something, and I've talked about this with my listeners over and over, because it just, how sometimes you'll be listening to a speech. This was in Tampa. I heard Chris Christie make this at the Republican National Convention when Mitt Romney was being nominated, and he talked about the importance of and how critical, and I'll never forget this, and he put a word in here that made all the difference: principled compromise. Yeah. Are you seeing principled compromise being exercised the way it should in Washington in general and within the halls of Congress?
I think I've tried to be part of that solution. What I saw is Barack Obama as the president really totally disengaged in the whole process. I mean, you talk to the old bulls who serve in Congress, and they'll tell you Barack Obama's the worst. I mean, part of the reason Donald Trump sailed to victory, a very convincing victory, is a rebuke of how Barack Obama was as the president of the United States. They did not like it. The executive branch failed to deliver on hope and change. And that hope and change required working with a Republican Congress. But there were months where the speaker and the president never even spoke, never even got together. Yeah. And I've had few to none, other than prison reform, few to none have ever had the president actually reach out his hand, even though I told the president, here are 5 things I agree with you on, I want to work with you on, and never heard a word back from the White House. And America saw that, and I think they correctly diagnosed it. It was not the Republican House and Senate that was the roadblock. It was the president of the United States. That's why they didn't want a third term in Hillary Clinton. I've
been so engaged in our conversation, I haven't paid attention to the clock, and I know you've got to run here momentarily. So just a real quick question on a couple of things. First of all, Hillary Clinton. Mm-hmm. Is she off the hook for some of the things that have been of concern to you and to your committee? And also a quick thought on D.C. D.C. voted to petition Congress, and you are in a pivotal position here for what they want to do. They want to become the 51st state of the union.
No way, no how am I going to ever move forward on allowing a D.C. statehood. That's in the Constitution, and I'm not about to change the Constitution. And I am the chairman of the Committee of Jurisdiction on Washington, D.C. It's a total non-starter. It's not getting a hearing, and there's no way we're moving forward on it. As it relates to Hillary Clinton, she was never the target of the investigation. We're not going after Hillary Clinton, but she did create one of the biggest security breaches in the history of the State Department, and I would be totally remiss to just walk away from that. Of course we're going to continue our investigation. Whether or not she's the president shouldn't matter. We're supposed to treat this the same, and I will pursue it until we get to the truth. Until, just like we had to on Benghazi, but just like we're going to do here, we're going to continue to pursue it until we get the truth. There's an open investigation at the State Department. There's an open investigation in the Oversight Committee that I chair, and I will continue to pursue that until we figure it out, because it's a security breach of the highest level. Classified information. We got to fix it.
I keep telling you, last question. Are we going to have Rob Bishop Secretary of the Interior?
That'd be great. I'd be wholeheartedly supportive of that. And boy, you want to see changes in Interior, put Rob Bishop in charge.
Congressman, thank you, as always, for joining us. Congressman Jason Chaffetz. Julie Chaffetz, thank you also for joining us. But more important, thank you for the donuts.
Absolutely. I'm going to finish mine now. Thank you.
We have to have our priorities straight, here on this program. It's 11:20 here at KSL News Radio. Much more to come on today's Doug Wright Show here at KSL News Radio.